Good morning, Ed. Good morning, Gate City. Good morning, Gate City. Good morning. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think Mike Andrews has our invitation this morning. And there he is. Very good.
Our prayer this morning is the Wesley Covenant Prayer. Please join me. I give myself completely to you, O God. Assign me to my place in your creation. Let me suffer for you. Give me the work you would have me do. Give me tasks to have me step aside while you call others. Put me forward or humble me. Give me riches or let me live in poverty. I freely give all that I am and have to you. And now, Holy God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, you are mine and I am yours. So be it. May this covenant made on earth continue for all eternity. Amen. Please join me in praise.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And for all the things that we think, say, and do.
Is the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
So, we're a little late getting started. Mike, you got a Rotary moment this morning?
Yeah. Last week, everybody sang the happy birthday. It was great.
Perfect. So we're going to sort of shove things along this morning because we're a little late. We got a full house, which is terrific. Chuck, you got a Sergeant Arms report for us?
We've got 47 Rotarians here today. We've got 2 visiting Rotarians, Bob Glenn from Guilford. Also our speaker today, Bob Edmunds, is from Greensboro. Cooper Trotter has a guest today.
Yeah, stand up, son. This is my son Seaton. He's my 27-year-old, lives in California and came home to see his mom and dad.
And Dale, do we have a birthday and anniversary report today?
Yes, we do. We have a few this week. On the 14th, Stephanie has a birthday.
You're right, she does.
Dorothy Downey on the 16th of September. Okay. We have a member anniversary. Mr. Ross Geller, will September 10th today.
All right.
And a wedding anniversary for Blake and Lynn Hunt on the 13th. Is it 18 years? They're already.
That's right. I done something for Ashley. I'm not saying Ashley. Everybody talk to Hal or Gail this week? Report there. I have not. Okay. Ralph, you look at something on your mind.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Golf tournament on the
First.
October 1st. It's at 12 o'clock. It's down in Troy. We are expected to have a team there. I'm planning to go at this point. I was looking for good golfers, but you got to So please, seriously consider coming, but we do need to have a team down there. It's the Rotary District.
That is actually how's that sort of requirement. We play golf, so it shouldn't be that big of a burden to go play golf.
No. So on Thursday afternoon.
Very good. Is Walt? I see the football pool out there. Walt, there you are.
Football pools are on the table, fill them out. I'll pick them up, need prizes. So anybody wants to donate a prize, contact me or bring it or do anything. I'll come pick it up, whatever. Okay, let me know.
Dale Hopkins.
Yeah, the only thing I'm concerned is big sweep is this weekend, like day after tomorrow.
Yep.
I sent everybody an email, but we have turned in little disclaimer forms telling the city that we're responsible for anything that may happen to us, our fault or not. So if you're planning on going, raise your hand, I'll bring this to you. Anybody here? You want to be in?
Did you raise your hand? Here we go. This is not, by no means obligating you to be there, but if you're going, you need this.
Oh, it's thoroughly obligating you.
Contract.
There he is.
I got one, Dan. I got one.
Go ahead.
All right, well, as soon as Dale's done passing this out, Chip is going to talk about pig stock, I believe.
Yeah, we're gonna jump right to it. Pig stock, the most fun thing we do all year. I'm sorry, all the other committee chairs, but pig stock is fun. It's a multi-day deal. We're cooking to raise money for the children of Vietnam. It's a family of Rotary event. We had 250, 300 people, maybe 4 last year. We've gone to a new place,
Shooting Star Farm.
Shooting Star Farm, down in Pleasant Gardens, a beautiful setting. We're shooting for 400 to 500, maybe 600 people this year. We've got 10 teams cooking, and our team has been the most award-winning team of any Rotary club out there, period. We won everything the first year. We won People's Choice, Best Beef last year, and we're going to beat them again this year. I know what happened last year that caused them to win the Grandmaster Champion, even though we got 2 of the 4 things. So, but anyway, we're going to fix that. It's a friendly competition.
As long as we win, it's friendly.
That's right. It's a friendly competition. But anyway, we need to build a team. We need some help. We need 10 to 12 people. We can have as many as we want. We'll be cooking, practice cook last weekend in September 26th, 27th. We'll take a vote. We'll do another one in October. We'll take a vote on that. November the 7th, the whole team's got to be there at least part of the day. Okay, so November the 7th is the day. So anyway, pig stock is a lot of fun. There will be beer. Last year we had a little target practice off the deck for a couple of days. So, you know, there's all kinds of things that go on when you're spending 8 hours over a grill.
The target practice is at the practice, not at pig stock.
No target practice at pig stock.
Fantastic. Chris, anything new? Anything you want to talk about?
Yeah, just real quick, Dan. I missed a couple of you guys coming in. Kelly, I've got a sponsorship packet for you. So if anybody sold a sponsorship packet and I did not catch you coming in, please see me before you take off today so I can get the sponsorship packets in your hands. On the subject of sponsors, I've heard a couple of you come up and say, hey, has so-and-so sent their money in? I've gotten everybody up on the website that we've gotten money from. So if you look at the sponsor list on the website, if you think that someone is going to purchase a sponsorship and you can verify that, I need to know here in the next day so that I can make sure that they get the appropriate recognition. I do have some some requirements in terms of getting logos to the ballpark to get up on the big board and also to get on the banner. And time's running out for that kind of stuff. So if you guys can give me that information, that would be great. Final week, just sell those individual tickets as fast as you can. Thanks.
Fantastic. This is one of the best days in Rotary. We get to induct new members and then lapsed members like Tom Phoenix. So if Parker and Tom would join us up, and Cheryl and Robbie, I will give it to you. I didn't know.
8 City Rotary was founded in 1991. We will be celebrating our 25th year as the year progresses here. Rotary itself, as you know, was founded in 1905 by Attorney Paul Harris in Chicago. It's always an exciting time when we're in a position to induct a new member. And it is my pleasure this morning to welcome both Tom and Parker as the latest members of Gate City Rotary. And on behalf of the Board of Directors and our members, we sincerely welcome you here. Our welcome is not only the anticipation of goodwill and fellowship that we'll share with you here on Thursday mornings and during social outings. We welcome you for your strong arms and sturdy back, which will help us carry out many service projects which, in a small yet significant way, make our community, our country, and our world a better place for all to live. For all here, Rotarians and non-Rotarians alike, it's important for us to be reminded of these important facts. First, Rotary is not a political organization, but all Rotarians are vitally concerned with everything pertaining to good citizenship and the election of good men and women to public office. Second, Rotary is not a charitable organization, yet its activities exemplify the charity and the sacrifices that one should expect from people who believe that they have a responsibility to help others. Third, Rotary is not a religious organization, but it is built on those eternal principles that have served as the moral compass for people throughout the ages, as well as the foundation of our great country. Rotary is an organization of business and professional people, pledged to upholding the highest professional standards. Rotarians believe that worldwide fellowship and international peace can be achieved when business people unite under the banner of service. Therefore, at this time, I would like everyone to please stand for the delivery of the following charge. You, Parker, and Tom have been chosen for membership of the Rotary Club of Gate City. Your sponsor and fellow members believe you to be a leader in your special line of work, and that you embody the qualities of head and heart that fit you to interpret and impart the message of Rotary. You are the representative of your vocation to this club, and at the same time you will now become an ambassador of Rotary. We rely on you to carry the principles and ideals of service to those with whom you work. Additionally, we expect you to inspire us, your fellow members, to become better Rotarians. I now ask that you be presented with a distinguishing lapel pin or other incidents of membership, of being a Rotarian. Our former and current, once again, charter member, Tom Phoenix, will be presented once again with his a white badge, by the way. Also included will be your official certificate of membership in Rotary and a declaration of the four-way test, which we've just recited as we do each week, Parker. They will help you to be reminded of what it means to be a Rotarian. And allow me at this time to offer the right-hand fellowship and welcome, Parker.
Thank you so much, sir.
And welcome back, Tom.
Thank you.
And I invite everyone to introduce yourselves to our members accordingly. Welcome them once again. Thank you very much.
Well, that seems like a good note for Happy Dollars. And I think Buster finally came home fast.
That camera, I'm gonna kill it.
Buster?
Happy dollars?
There he is.
Did y'all have one last night?
They're just taking a camera class. Call her, she took my card out of it.
Yeah.
Tell me. There's no card. Couldn't take it.
He is not here.
She got a new camera, I guess she took my card and put it in there.
It was close.
Give five
Yeah.
for Harold, too.
Y'all never met Harold Driggers, he's a nice guy, he is. His daughter Reagan sent in a little article for our neighborhood publication, and I just want to read this because it's very complimentary. For as long as I can remember, every Father's Day, it's been our tradition to do three things for other people, and three kind things for my sister. That's the present my dad wants. And this year, I really wanted to do something big. In the past years, I've done Out of the Garden Party, lemonade stand, where we raised $96. I've also volunteered for Out of the Garden and a few times done a few nice things for my sister. This year on Father's Day, I started to think about what to do right away. I thought about my cousin, Claudia, and we decided to donate our hair to cancer patients. And then just to wrap it up, I was so happy I was able to raise that much money, help others out with my donated hair, and give my daddy a great Father's Day present. 89 years old.
So it's just always a happy day when my godson Seaton's in town. Making a go of it in the film industry. Glad to hear that.
All right.
This is an IOU dollar for the 50 that I pledged on the email that I sent out earlier this week. I'll ask Mike to stand up too, because I think he usually does the crop walk too, don't you, Mike?
I do.
Are you going to do it this year?
I'm not sure if I'll be in town.
Okay, well, you give me all fine. You hesitate. I was going to include crop crop walk this year.
I'll send an email if I am, but it all goes to the same good cause.
It does. Major hunger problem in the Triad area, as we all know. Very unfortunate that we get targeted out, and it's hard to believe in the city that we live in that it can be as bad as it is, but it is. And so anyway, I am chair in our outreach committee at First Presbyterian Church, and then I got to take on the crop walk. So I'm pushing pretty hard for crop walk this year. So if you feel so inclined, love to have your donation online. I sent a link out. It's real easy. Do it online. Appreciate your support. And I'll bring the 50 in next week. All right. 40.
Well, after all these good ones, mine is a little bit selfish. I made an eagle on a par 4 from 184 yards. And
I thought maybe that realtor talked you into buying another house.
The hole after the hole one I hit. So we've got, somebody needs to rise to the occasional number 12. But his was a little.
Are you going to
better.
give a dollar?
No, I'm just kidding.
Sorry.
That's all right.
This one's for teamwork. I met in Africa with two Rotary clubs, one in Botswana and one in South Africa. Incredible people. They're doing great stuff. They've got like 8 people in their clubs, but they are doing big stuff in their community with wheelchairs and just really, really neat people. So that teamwork. And then on the second day of our 6-day ride, I was hit by the follow vehicle and ended up on the ground, and I couldn't walk. But my team, was surrounding me and helping me, and the one thing I could continue to do was pedal. So for the next 4 days, they carried me everywhere, literally, picked me up and carried me everywhere we went, and would put me on the bike in the morning, and I'd pedal my 110 miles and get off at night. But finished the entire ride. When we got to Zambia, a farm worker there said, "You need a cane," so he made me this cane. You can buy this cane, it'll cost you $50,000. It will all go to a good cause, though, and it's a heck of a cane. So. But anyways,
TSA like that cane.
They really do. There's nothing like going through an airport in a wheelchair. It's amazing how fast you get through everything. But anyways, no broken bones, healing up some deep tissue damage, but incredible hope ride this year. And I learned more about teamwork, and I guess I learned to really appreciate groups of people like this and what we can do when we all do it together. We can really accomplish some great things. So cheers to everyone. It's great to be back.
I'm going to tell another golf story. Last week, I played in Myrtle Beach World Amateur, which is the largest golf tournament in the world. It's a big handicap event, so I think a 20 handicapper won it. On the first day, we got rained out the very first day, but the next day, course was brutal. It was really, the bunkers were almost unplayable, a lot of rain. And the guy in my group was just horrible. He's not a Rotarian, I can tell you that. Real rules Nazi, and we got in a bunch of controversy, and the whole group played terrible. And so the next day I played a little better, but on the last day I finally kind of figured it out. I went out in 37, I was 4 over, and going to the last hole, and I kind of butchered it up, but I had a net 68 and had the low round of the week for our flight, but I didn't win anything. But the last 2 days, the guys were great. We had a really good time, so it was a fun week, but I don't know if I'll do it again.
Buster always likes to give me grief. Hi, this is, I was reminded again, as we said the Pledge of Allegiance this morning, that tomorrow is September 11th. And we're always reminded of our good friend Howard Coble, who procured this flag for us in the months following that for our club, and just a happy dollar in honor of those we remember and in honor of those who have served in the public or private sector, including our now former congressman. So, thank you.
I'm just glad that David didn't get hit by a rhino or a hippo, that he got hit by a follow
Almost
truck.
by an ostrich.
Ostrich. No, I don't have a
Whoa, whoa, whoa!
I said I said.
All right, who's got a dollar?
I said.
See, my coins are good enough for him after all.
Thank you. I spent most of my dollars sending clients to financial therapy over the last couple of weeks, but wifey did jury duty this week, and she had 100 reasons she could have been excused. You know, she's got surgery coming up, she hobbles around, all kind of things. Anyway, she said, no, it's my civic duty, I'm gonna do it.
Robbie wouldn't let her out.
Actually, she said, but she learned the wildest excuse to get out of jury duty that did not work. Apparently, this salesman from Greensboro had a business trip the last time he was called for jury duty, and so he said, just defer me. And so they said, you know, it's much easier to be deferred than it is to be excused. And, you know, they get a million excuses down there. And so between the last time of his sales meeting and this jury duty, the boy got married. And he went to Myrtle Beach for his honeymoon. He's probably in the golf tournament down there. And so they wouldn't let him out of jury duty, even though he's on his honeymoon. So he drove back from Myrtle Beach yesterday, sat in the bullpen. They didn't call him, and then sent him back to Myrtle Beach. So if you get called, you show up.
Okay. I got two. Katie had a good week this week. Katie's a senior at Early College, and Guilford actually hired her to tutor the Guilford students in econ. So she's a senior in high school tutoring the students at Guilford. And they also nominated her for the Belk Scholarship at Davidson, which is the full ride at Davidson.
Well, my family's not quite so academically talented, although Wilder, my son, who's at NC State, for those who don't know, I'm a Carolina fan, but he's at State this week. Took his first college exam, got 100 on it, the smiley face, aced it. There's a +1 on there for extra credit. It is in Spanish, which is amazing, but as I told him, and his mother reminded him, now you're qualified to be a dishwasher out at Castle Yard. Keep up the good work.
Yeah. Well, nobody probably saw this, but I had my happy dollar just to avert a $2 fine where, gosh, it's been a month since I've been here, but there was my wife and I were at the farmer's market, and we got cornered by this reporter from the Greensboro newspaper about this big pile of ladders they're doing. And I said, no, I don't want to be interviewed because I know if I say anything, it's going to look really stupid in print. He said, no, I promise. And he wanted to know my opinion on the big pile of ladders, the big ladder sculpture. And I said I thought it was silly, but then it could be a metaphor, so he really liked that. So the headline said something about a metaphor, but nobody saw it, did they?
Buster, you didn't see my ladder in that time.
Yeah, that's right. And, you know, there have been a lot of weddings, and my daughter got married, and I know James' daughter got married. And, you know, they can be pretty expensive, pretty elaborate, but I was asking Grandpappy about his wedding. You know, what was that like? He said it was small. It was really small. He said it was so small I had to carry my own shotgun.
It's our great honor this morning to have as our speaker Associate Justice Robert Edmunds of the North Carolina Supreme Court. Bob is a Greensboro native. In fact, his family roots run deep. He is a direct descendant of John Motley Moorhead, and his family has been in Greensboro for over 200 years. And he is also a Rotarian as a member of the Greensboro Club. He has a long-standing record of public service. After growing up in Greensboro, and he attended Vassar College, where he graduated in the early 1970s, followed with that with a law degree in education from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Once again, following his service in the Navy, he returned to Greensboro to practice law, and was soon thereafter appointed, having been an assistant district attorney on the state side, and in private practice was appointed the United States Attorney for the Middle District in the 1980s. He was first elected to the appellate courts in 1998 to the North Carolina Court of Appeals, and 2 years later, taking the fast track He was first elected to the North Carolina Supreme Court for a full 8-year term, and was then thereafter re-elected for the first time in 2008. Bob and his wife Linda live here in Greensboro. Among other things, he also has obtained his master's of the judicial process from the University of Virginia. He is very much a scholar jurist and is involved in a number of activities at the state and national level professionally, judicially, and with professional organizations such as the North Carolina and American Bar Associations and its judicial division, which I'm happy to be a fellow member with him. Bob is a wonderful fellow who also believes very much in public service and giving back. And he and his wife Linda have 2 adult sons. They are members of Holy Trinity Episcopal Church. Would you give Bob, Justice Edmunds, a warm Rotary welcome?
Well, thank you, Robbie. That was nice. It really is nice to be here. As Robbie, ever since John Edwards got in trouble, I can't say I'm a North Carolina native because I was born in Danville. Some of you may remember that. But it is great to be back. As Robbie said, I'm on the State Supreme Court. And as a result, I spend almost all of my week in Raleigh. So having a chance to be here today, spend last night in Greensboro with my wife, I feel like I'm playing hooky, so I'm just having a wonderful time. And it's a treat to be here. And not only am I on your Supreme Court, I am the Senior Associate Justice. And people wonder what that means. That means my license plate is number 2. It is more privilege than you can imagine. But as Robbie also said, I am also a Rotarian. My grandfather helped found the downtown club that I'm a member of about a century ago. So it's always particularly nice to have a chance to be out and meet and talk to like-minded people. Let me give you a little bit of background about my talk. We have a relatively new Chief Justice on the court, Mark Martin. He's served as an Associate Justice for many years and became Chief last year when Sarah Parker, who had been our Chief, reached the age of mandatory retirement. Well, Mark's young, he's a fireball, and he's got a lot of initiatives going, and one of them involves the improvement of civic education. And every member of the court, every member of the judge on the Court of Appeals agrees that this initiative is a particularly good idea. And here's why. We judges are elected. We have to get out. We have to run. We get out as often as we can. And what we learn, usually the hard way, is that most people who aren't lawyers have a modest understanding of what courts do and the importance of courts in their lives. So I'm going to say a few words today about the rule of law and the importance of the courts. This year, 2015, marks the 800th anniversary of the signing of Magna Carta. Now this is a big deal, Magna Carta is, for all of us who live under the American system of justice, because it pretty much set the stage for the ascent of the rule of law, and with that, our strength as a nation. Now the history of Magna Carta is fascinating. I've studied it some. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but it sure has its soap opera aspects to it. So let's all in our minds go back to the year 1200. Now how many of you remember the movie The Lion in Winter? See some hands. Yeah, it's a little bit of age, getting a little bit of age on it, but you'll remember that Henry II, who was played by Peter O'Toole, was the King of England, and Eleanor of Aquitaine, who was played by Katharine Hepburn, was his queen. Well, at that time, they had a number of children, only 2 of whom really need to worry us. The older of the 2 was Richard the Lion-Hearted, who succeeded Henry II, and is best known for being a crusader. Unfortunately for him, he died on crusade, and his younger brother, the youngest child of that family, John, became King of England. And when John became king, he was lucky in that sense. He inherited a stable kingdom. It pretty much reached from Scotland, modern-day Scotland, Ireland, through the modern England, deep into France. A lot of what we think of as modern-day France at that time was English territory, and all the way down to the Pyrenees Mountains. It was a pretty big chunk of territory. But unfortunately, as history tells us, John was not the sharpest knife in the drawer. Even before he became king, while his brother John, who had the crown, was crusading in Europe, John essentially, John was ambitious, and what he did was he tried to undermine Richard by betraying him and taking power early. Didn't work. The only effect was he managed both to alienate his brother and King Philip of France, who was the other significant monarch in Europe at the time. So after that failed attempt, and after Richard's death, when John did take the throne in the year 1200, he was known as being treacherous, and things didn't get any better. He got into some very ill-advised wars with France, the effect of which was to cost him most of England's property, land on the European continent, and to get out of these wars he also had to pay cash to the French to secure peace. So he's a pretty lousy steward of his kingdom. His nobles, the barons of England, weren't impressed with him because, if you remember your Shakespeare and your history, most of those days when there was a war or a fight, the king would lead the army personally into battle. That was not John's approach. His approach was pretty much, you guys go fight, let me know how it plays out. So when 1215 dawned, John wasn't trusted by his countrymen, he wasn't trusted by the nobles of England, he wasn't trusted by the ruler of France, he was perceived as being weak and perhaps cowardly, and he had nearly bankrupted his country. This is where the story becomes important to us. As you remember from school, the political theory that backed kings then was the divine right of kings. There were no legal limitations on a king's power. Whatever the king wanted to do, his subjects, or occasionally a queen, her subjects had to grin and bear it. When John imposed taxes on his people, they just had to pay. There was no courts that they could appeal to. When nobles wanted their children to inherit from them, they had to pay the crown for the privilege, otherwise everything would escheat to the crown. That didn't go over too big. But the king had the power. He claimed the power came from God, and there wasn't much people could do about it. It wasn't a happy time. And those of you with romance in your soul, this was the time of Robin Hood, of Maid Marian, of the Sheriff of Nottingham, not to be mistaken for B.J. Barnes. And it became a turbulent time under John's reign. And usually, at this point in history, if there was opposition to a king, it would crystallize in one of two ways. Either there would be a competing dynastic family in the wings that claimed they really had the right to the throne, or one of the king's siblings, or even one of the king's children, would be in a position perhaps to take over. But it didn't work out that way in 1215. John was the youngest son of Henry and Catherine, so there were no other siblings in line who could take over. John had a son, but the son was an infant, and there was no regent. So there wasn't an alternative king waiting in the wings, and there was no other dynastic family. So, as far as I can tell, for the first time in history, the English subjects, instead of turning to rebellion, demanded recognition of their rights. Instead of asking or threatening to replace King John, they demanded reform, and they negotiated with the king. And Magna Carta is the document that emerged from those negotiations. And on 15 June 1215, at Runnymede, John and his barons signed and sealed the document. Now, it dealt with the big issues of the day. It promised protection of church rights. It protected the barons from illegal punishments. It guaranteed swift justice, limited payments to the crown. It also dealt with much more granular types of things, such as fishing rights on the Thames. But what really matters to us is that it began the slow turn from the divine right of kings, who could act as arbitrarily as they wished, to the rule of law. And it's the rule of law that gives us predictability, and the fact that all of us, from the King of England down to the guy who mows the yard, has to follow the same rules. That's what gives us our freedom and what gives us our strength as a country. And Magna Carta still touches us in three direct ways today. There are only three clauses in Magna Carta that remain in effect today. Now, the first one concerns the freedoms of the Church of England. As Robbie said, I'm an Episcopalian, so I think that's a big deal. The second one addresses the ancient cities of the, liberties of the City of London, so if any of you plan to be tourists, keep that one in mind. But the third one is a guarantee that a free man shall not lose his property or freedom, except in accordance with the law of the land. Now, when I was in law school back in the last century, we never, to my recollection, never discussed the Constitution of North Carolina. All our discussions went around federal law, and I never read the North Carolina Constitution until I became a judge. And when I read it, I ran into Article 1, Section 19, which says, and I'm quoting, "No person shall be deprived of his life, liberty, or property, but by the law of the land." I thought, boy, that's a quaint sounding phrase. I wonder what law of the land means. Where does it come from? What's it doing in our Constitution? Well, now I know. There's a direct line from Runnymede to the courthouse down the street where Judge Hassel presides. And all these rights have been preserved over the centuries by your courts and by your judges. And as I speak of judges, I want to say a word about judges in the present day. As a Rotarian, I know we don't have speakers who make political campaign speeches, but a bill was passed this year by the General Assembly and signed by Governor McCrory that all of us, all of you as voting citizens need to know about. It was signed in June, and it was a fairly big deal in Raleigh. I mean, Raleigh's a real hothouse. The News and Observer prints nothing but political news, it seems like. But I found out when I get away from Raleigh, or get away from bar associations, people haven't heard about this and tend to give me a surprise look and then start asking questions. So I want to tell you what happened so you'll know about it, so you won't be taken aback when you see the ballot next year. And the funny thing is it only affects elections for the state Supreme Court, only that one court. But what the General Assembly did was they passed a retention bill, or more accurately, an election and retention bill. In the past, justices of the Supreme Court, just like all judges, and Judge Hassel's been through it, he knows the meaning of the word hassle in more than one sense because it's no fun. In fact, I'm going to digress for a second. I heard on NPR this morning that a DA, I think in Davidson County or something, had been indicted for paying $20,000 to an opponent not to run. So, judicial elections sometimes get taken on a little color. Yeah, I'm just check and see if I can get direct deposit, but
we filmed this.
Just kidding. Whoa, I should ask that. Anyway, in the past, all our judicial elections were contested elections, just like the elections you used to. There'd be two names on the ballot. In the past, sometimes they were listed by party affiliation. In the last several elections, they've been nonpartisan. But there'd be two names, and you could pick the one you liked. Well, that process has now changed for the Supreme Court. For a justice who's already been elected, and you do have to go through a contested election first, as I have, your next election becomes a retention election. And what that means is you don't have an opponent. There isn't another name on the ballot. What it's going to say is, Supreme Court of North Carolina, so-and-so for retention for another 8-year term, for or against. And the closest thing we ever see to something like that is when we have an amendment on the ballot. You vote for or against amendments. But for a candidate, we're not used to seeing that. Edmunds, for, or whoever, for or against. The way it works is if 50% plus one of those who vote say vote for, the justice gets another term. If 50% plus one say against, the judge goes home, and what happens then is the governor appoints a new justice, and because it's an election and retention system, that justice will serve 2 years to the next general election, and then will face a contested election. It's new for North Carolina, but the one thing I do want to stress to you, and I do try to make a point of saying, it's not unusual or freakish. I've gone online, I've checked at the Center for State Courts. More states, I believe, choose judges in some method other than the direct elections that we have in North Carolina. There are gubernatorial appointments, there are commission appointments, there are all sorts of ways of getting on. So what this is, I believe, is the General Assembly is experimenting with a good government, what is believed to be a good government measure. The Bar Association, State Bar Association, has been supporting something like this for years. And what I want to do, I enjoy talking to groups like you who are influential. People will ask you about, your opinion of these things. This is your chance to say, by the way, when you look at the ballot, you're going to see something unusual. I don't want you folks scratching their head and going, why is it being done this way? So all of us on the Supreme Court, when we're getting out, we're talking about this and explaining the new system to voters, but you can very much help us spread the word. Now, I have found that these presentations always come alive when I open the floor to Q&A. So I will do that happily, and I'll be glad to talk. If you want to ask me questions about Magna Carta, I will do that. If you want to ask questions about retention elections, I'll be glad to handle those. If you want to ask about retaining Magna Carta, I can do that too. But I'm grateful that you all are here. I'm glad you've heard me out. Thank you very much, and I invite your questions.
As you can see, he is embodying the civics education component and goal of our Chief Justice. I will tell you also that 22 states have some form of retention election system, and we at the bar level have been working, as you know, for a number of years to depoliticize the judicial selection process. You never really take the politics out of it, but as you will also remember last year we had 4 of our 7 seats up in contested elections, and some of that involved some dark money, as they say, which we were very, very concerned about. The original bill was designed to cover all appellate seats, and it will cover Justice Edmunds' position as the sole Supreme Court seat that's up next week. With that, we will take questions.
You were first, I think.
Yeah.
Ms.
Go
Dale,
ahead. Go
I
ahead.
think you were first.
I'm wondering if this is just a precursor to term limits or something like that for other politicians, not just for judges.
Well, there are a form of limitation now that we have a 72 age limit. Other than that, there isn't. I don't think North Carolina, I don't think the judicial elections are likely to bleed over in that sense into the other elections. That's Bob Edmunds talking, not ex cathedra or anything like that.
There's a lot of talk about term limits, not just federal, but state as well. I just wondered if that was covered.
But what they're doing, and this is somewhat of my take on it, as Robbie said, the original bill would include not only the Supreme Court, but the Court of Appeals. And the Court of Appeals was stripped out when it went from the House to the Senate. As it stands now, it will affect only one election. So I think it's being, I think it's being run as something of an experiment. And if it works, it may in fact expand to include some of the other courts. But I can make arguments for it and arguments against it, but I do think it is meant to insulate judges from some of the instances where judges have lost because they had to make a tough decision. I don't know how many opinions I've written, several hundred, and it may happen as, you get into this game knowing what's going on. I would hate to lose because of one I wrote, but it can happen.
Well, it shouldn't work that way.
But it does. Almost the Iowa court, almost every member of that court lost because of one decision they made. So it happens. Anyway.
Chip, you have a question?
I was just going to say on the Magna Carta, I think we ought to keep it around and consider it maybe another year or two until we fully understand what it means. But after that, everybody seems to be in agreement. So I'm just thinking about a yay-nay vote versus a Robbie versus Bob vote. Which do you think would be easier to win? You could get a bunch of people mad, stir up a bunch of people, and they might bring bad votes.
Well, that's what happened in Iowa.
Yeah,
so that was a rude awakening for the longtime proponents of the retention system that said, oh my gosh.
That might be easier to stir up than votes for somebody as opposed to, hey, we don't like that guy.
At least I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
But no, as you heard Justice Edmunds say, there are 4 things.
Yeah, historically, retention elections do tend to favor incumbents, unless the incumbent has done something to bring themselves forward. Those of you with longer memories may remember Rose Bird out in California when Jerry Brown was first governor.
that state. I don't know if this is exactly accurate, but the story is he made his campaign chauffeur, the Chief Justice, Rose Bird. She managed to irritate everybody. So she was thrown off and took a number of pretty good judges down with her. In our last election, as Robbie mentioned, in 2014, there were 4 justices out of 7 on the Supreme Court up for election. And you may remember Robin Hudson. Robin's from Greensboro. She's a Page graduate. But she had written an opinion involving a dissent involving a case of the sex offender who had an ankle bracelet. And it was a perfectly mainline dissent talking about rights to privacy. But somebody from out of state dumped over $1 million, I'm not sure how much more, showing a distorted picture of her and saying, Robin Hudson likes sex offenders. I mean, talk about it, ugly, brutal, unfair. Ultimately, I think it helped her because she won what was a close race. And one of the, Robin's a Democrat, he's a nonpartisan, Robin's a Democrat. One of the first people to say this was a bad idea was Richard Benroot, who's been a Republican candidate for governor. So it got everybody alarmed. But that's the downside of what can happen in a contested race. Something similar can happen in the retention election, though it tends to take a hot button issue or just, generally being a jerk. We'll see.
Justice Edmunds, just between us, how many times have you had to overturn Robbie?
We have this rubber stamp. Oh, here comes another hassle.
They grade my papers.
Robbie, can I ask how many times Chris has been in front of you?
Robbie's been reading up on the statutes on contempt, but
Maybe it shows Chris.
You mentioned the News and Observer and our poor shrinking Greensboro newspaper, but as an average citizen, how do how do you stay informed to really know? You guys know, but I mean, to make an intelligent vote. Do you have any suggestions?
well, in judicial races, there's a voter guide that goes out, and it's pretty. I won't say it's objective, but each person who's in it, each candidate writes something about themselves, so it's not someone sort of filtering through. And with the internet, there's a whole lot of stuff you can find. One thing in Greensboro, Doug Clark, who writes for the Greensboro paper, is very interested in the courts. In his blog, I can't say I always agree with it, but it is unusually well informed. So, keep your eye on Doug. He will generally have some pretty good thoughts about what's going on in the legal process. But, the internet puts the burden on us to find these things, but most of it's there. I mean, when that retention bill was going through, of course, for some reason I got kind of interested in it. Very easy to follow on the General Assembly website what it was doing because it's kept up to date every day.
Justice Edmunds, thank you ever so much.
Thank you, Dan.
We're going to a book in your honor to Cone Elementary. It's Reuben and the Balloon. I'm pretty sure it's about the Magna Carta. And while we still have you on film, we'd like to have you drawing a raffle ticket. There you go.
You're going to get it in.